Hello everyone. You are watching a snippet of the countdown program from August 3, 2023. Today is Thursday. See the full version on Patreon. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. It's time to do it. Because from September, there will be a lot of new and exclusive things. And I'm moving on to the main topic. Increasingly, there are warnings that this war could become protracted. And this is exactly what Putin is so stubbornly seeking. Russia, unlike Ukraine, has a serious reserve of manpower. German Bild warns. Russia is probably ready to wage war with Ukraine for another 2 to 3 years. According to experts close to the German government, Russia can increase the number of active soldiers to 3 million people if the course of the war so requires. Now the number of Russian military personnel is about 1,150,000. And if their number is brought to 3 million, then in this case the Russian army will quantitatively surpass the armed forces of China. At the same time, the level of training of soldiers will remain low or none at all, not to mention problems with weapons and equipment. But these difficulties do not frighten the Kremlin. It is not Putin or Patrushev with their offspring who will go to hand combat. Judging by the latest amendments to the legislation with an increase in the age of conscripts, Putin is ready to fight to the last rashist. Of course, women will now give birth less, but the biomaterial that has already been produced by Russian biofemales is quite enough to shower Ukraine with meat. And there, you see, Putinomics will take on a military footing, and the military industry will also produce enough shells. As the head rat says, quietly. And there the world will get tired of the war and put pressure on Ukraine, after which it will agree to give up some territories, renouncing its claims to the Crimea and Donbass. True, at the moment, cave diplomacy has slid to the level of a fence mat, so it is not clear with whom to negotiate at all. The Lavrov foreign ministry has long since lost influence over Putin, becoming an automatic repeater of the Kremlin's belligerent rhetoric. And if even before the war, in closed negotiations, the speeches of the cave diplomats were no different from the yard language, then what can we say about the present moment? Contacts with the West have been virtually eliminated, and the likelihood of negotiations that will end the war is negligible. President Zelensky has said he hopes to have a peace summit on Ukraine this fall, and that talks in Saudi Arabia this week are a stepping stone towards that goal. By the way, Russian Pontarez diplomats were not invited to the conference in Saudi Arabia, which means that all that remains is to wait for a new wave of mobilization in the cave, which may silently begin in the near future. Meanwhile, the number of attempts to set fire to military registration and enlistment offices exceeded 36 in 5 days. Moreover, all this pyromania with the use of mysterious technologies such as NLP over the phone can be a project of a homegrown specialty to wind up nervousness at the very bottom of the collector. Here you have a money theme with bank loans, and telephone fraud, and even terrorism, and for a snack and all mental programming technologies. Such an explosive mix is quite in the spirit of Lubyanka creatives. The spreading of the Ukrainian counter-offensive in time and space also played into the hands of the Kremlin. At the same time, it is irresponsible to accuse the armed forces of Ukraine of moving slowly. The Russians got time to build fortifications and mine the area. As Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Danilov said, on 1 square meter of the occupied territory, the occupiers lay up to 5 minutes. It is the clearing of the area that takes the main time, slowing down the pace of the offensive. Danilov added that earlier there were hopes that mine clearance during the offensive would be carried out with the help of equipment, but Ukrainian soldiers have to clear a very large number of sectors of the front manually and on foot. In this regard, the delay in the supply of arms from the West looks like some kind of cold-blooded connivance on the verge of an agreement with the aggressor. And the West could have made claims, if not for 2 buts. Watch the full story on Patreon. Become our patrons now and look further in this program. Pope Francis urged Europe to look for creative options for a settlement in Ukraine. It does not occur to the pontiff that such creativity has already historically been implemented in the 40s of the 20th century in relation to fascist Germany. As we have warned, the animals that have conquered in Ukraine are returning to the cave and indulging in all serious. In the Karelian village of Derevianoye on the night of August 1, 5 men and 1 woman were found stabbed to death. They were killed by scumbags who returned from the war, one of whom fought as part of the Wagner PMC. After Putin publicly acknowledged that Wagner PMC mercenaries were fully funded from the Russian budget, his statement could be the reason for new investigations and arrest warrants for the Russian dictator. This was stated by the head of the International Criminal Court Piotr Hofmansky. And Putin himself kept Sobyanin at his place until 2:30 that night. We discussed what to do when dozens of Ukrainian drones attack Moscow. After all, it is clear that the implementation of such an attack is a matter of time. Frightened residents of Moscow City will not let you lie. The principle of Kremnishism from geopolitical heights has descended to the grassroots level. In the city of Dzhezhinsk, a man tried to seize her pantry from a neighbor. Yesterday, the entire progressive cave celebrated the Day of the Airborne Forces. In Moscow fountains, the blue did not splash much. But in Novosibirsk they noted notably, so that already the yacht with the airborne troops turned over and sank. And that is all. See the full program on Patreon. And thanks to everyone who is becoming our patrons right now. I hugged everyone. I'll meet you tomorrow on Friday Live. Glory to Ukraine.